encouragement, and I know where to get it. Let's rise. Come on, come on, rise. Let's go higher, higher, higher. Rise with yourself. Rise with yourself. Howdy! Howdy, partner.
Oh, Jesus help me. You know what's so funny that I haven't doing this show in a month? Well, welcome back, but uh, but I had to learn to turn the computer down because my roommate says if I hear "Rise with Lisette" holler one more time, you're gonna rise with a knuckle sandwich. I said I am waking up the whole house.
That's exactly why I do it, to get your attention. Hey,
Oh,
you guys, it's so good to be here today. Thank you for coming on Rise with Lisette. You know what? We got a great show coming for you. I'm telling you, it's like it's been a while. It's been somewhat of a long time, but hey, I was going through with my brother. My brother passed about a month ago, and my little dog too. My little dog passed too. I mean, he was like a family pet for like 14 years, and I lost my dog. Anyway, I'm good with it. He's going to be with the Lord. Amen. Now, we got a great guest coming for you. I'm telling you, I am so excited. Let me just tell you about this one little thing. By the way, how you guys been doing? Y'all been doing all right? I hope you have, because it's been kind of tough, but I have really, really, you know what? I got myself fortified and I'm ready for the journey. It's good to be here. It was kind of funny. I was at the barbecue festival, and I was buying in Kinston. It's the annual barbecue festival in Kinston. And there was a lady buying a drink at the concession stand there. And so she said, "Well, you know what?" She said, "Don't worry." She said, "As long as you got the cup, you can come back and maybe next year and we'll give you a refill." That's what we do. I said, "That's interesting." So I went to the gas station, and there was someone coming up there to the counter at the station with an old cup. It had a band-aid on it. I'm saying like glue. I said, "What in the world is going on? Uh, can I get my refill?" I said, "These people take this stuff serious." I can imagine, I just could imagine a band-aid on the cup and glue and all kind of stuff trying to get that free refill. I just thought it was hilarious, how sometimes people can take it, they're going to get that little nickel, they're going to squeeze that nickel dime on everything. But you know what? It's good to be able to get free refills. And I'm just so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be here. It's good to be here. God is truly good. You know what? Our guest is so amazing.
I love you so much. Since we have been off for a month, I forgot that you can go into a monologue about anything. And that's what I love about you. You could have went into a monologue about paper straws versus plastic straws for some reason and make it crazy. So that's funny. Tell them about our guest. I'm going to tell you what I like about us having this guest today. Go ahead.
Well, what I like about having this guest today is that he works with the youth. And that is so very, very important, to work with the youth. You know what? I remember when I was in church and I was uh just going to church, and church was like boring, okay? But there was a youth pastor there that didn't mind taking the time with the youth. I mean, he wasn't arrogant like some of the other big bishops walking by. Oh, that's the young people, but oh, that's the young people, But no, he treasured the young people.
Oh,
And he would take us on outings. We would go to church and do other things with other young people. It was fun.
sounds like those arguments you and I be having.
And what's that?
About the young people. I love people who work with youth because this is the one thing. If people have watched the show before, me and Lisette and others, we go back and forth about the youth because I always say it's every generation's job to say the next generation has lost its mind. And we forget that so easily. They say that about this generation. My
Mhm.
dad said it to me about my generation. His dad said it to him about his generation was the worst. And newsflash, his dad's dad said it about his dad. And it
Exactly.
was the worst generation.
Exactly.
And we always forget the youth are responsible for our great change, for our change, right?
That is.
Anytime you look at anything in life, whether it's things that we need to protest about, ways we change in voting, the way we eat, all types of things, it's always the
Mhm.
youth that end up affecting that change. Why? Because
Why?
they have the energy. Some people, you get to a certain age, you don't feel like doing anything anymore, or you do that thing that I hate to hear, which is, "This is just the way I am. I'm set in my ways," which is a terrible statement. All the You should never be set in your ways. This shouldn't always be the way that you are. You should constantly work on evolving. And when you're a teen and when you're young, what are you in? You're in that evolutionary stage. It's also the place where you intake the most. We all go through the phase of our parents tell us something, we kind of listen to it, and some friend or some stranger or some teacher will say the same exact thing, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. So we need those important people in the community who are not related to us to also help and guide us. So that's why I have love having guests on like that. You know me, I'm very pro youth. I'm 46, but I'm always talking about what we need to do with the youth. People my age are always like, "Oh, the youth, this, that," and I'm like, "I went to school with you. You were just as dumb. So stop calling the youth dumb. They are smarter than us." Okay? So I love having this guest on. I would love to see some of his perspective on some of the questions I have to ask. So instead of having him sit back there and listen to us babble on and on and on again, why don't we bring him on and welcome Chris J. Suggs, the
Yay!
owner of Kinston Team.
I'm telling you, Chris, it's such a pleasure. This is Chris J. Suggs, and I'm telling you, what an honor because I seen your work, some of your work, and how you have a heart and a passion, not only for teens but for Kinston. We live in the same town, same city here, and I've seen how you go out and you do different things in the community. I'm solely impressed, and I'm on your side. I'm pulling for you, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here this morning.
I mean, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. But Chris, tell us about yourself a little bit.
Sure. Well, I'm Chris Suggs. I was born and raised here in Kinston. So proud to be a son of this community, to be here in the town that has, I believe, made me into the person and the leader that I am. I am a graduate of UNC-Chapel Hill. So after graduating from Kinston High School, I went to college at UNC-Chapel Hill. Spent 4 amazing years there, serving on campus, being involved in the community in Chapel Hill. Got elected president of our Black Student Movement, senior class president for my graduating class, and then upon my graduation, returned home to Kinston to jump right back into serving and helping the community that I've always been a part of through Kinston teams and running for city council that year. And at the time of my election in 2021, I was the youngest elected official in North Carolina.
Wow.
I've held that distinction. It's truly been an honor to help serve and lead the community in the city that I care so much about, and help it, prosper, to really build a more vibrant and more healthy community here in Kinston and Lenore County.
This is just amazing. I mean, did your mom Crystal know you was a genius when you was when you was a little smaller than what you are because you're still young. I mean, younger. I mean, wow, did she know? Crystal, did you know? Oh my God, you
When
are
he
amazing.
decided, when he picked to go to UNC-Chapel Hill and not Duke, it solidified his intelligence. All right. So, um,
Yes.
why teens, Chris? Why there? Why not preteens? Why not young 20s? Why specifically teens?
Mhm.
So the work of Kinston Teens wasn't me trying to pick a particular generation. It was me working to empower my generation. So when I started this organization at 14 years old, a teenager myself, just entering my freshman year of high school at Kinston High School.
Wow.
At the time, there were a lot of issues going on in our community, particularly around gun violence. In addition to problems in our school system and poverty and so many of the other economic and social problems affecting our community, gun violence had become a very significant issue, and it was disproportionately affecting young people like me.
Yeah.
My friends, my classmates, folks I knew in school were unfortunately either shooting someone or getting shot.
Mhm.
And at the time, there were a lot of other efforts being made in the community to try to address this issue. Our city council, police chief, local churches organizing faith gatherings and prayer meetings, and there are all these conversations about what they were going to do to solve this youth crime and youth violence issue. But no one was actually talking to young people, and we were the ones most affected by this problem. So that's what led me to founding Kinston Teens, because I knew that myself and my peers, we needed an avenue, we needed a way to organize ourselves to help address the issues that were impacting our daily lives, to help develop solutions to the problems that we were experiencing on a daily basis.
This
I
is
love
really,
that. Go ahead,
go
sir.
ahead, go ahead.
I love that you said that. And one of the key things that you said in there that I always talk about is where people didn't think about it that much. It's the teen, and the reason why I say I like the teen instead of the preteen. When we always talk about save the children, I feel like everybody's always talking about 6, 7, 8 year olds, right? But when you get into that teen age, it's like that's just the way they are. That's the youth. That's this generation. It's like, well, that's not solving the problem. You just saying that and walking away, or complaining about teens. But I always go, well, what are you doing about it? And one of the places that people mess up, and me and Lisette have talked about this before, is when people try to guide teens the way things used to be. Well, this is how it used to be, and this is what you should do. And I've always been the moniker of when you're trying to help teens, how about you help them navigate the space that they're in today? It's not 1996 anymore. I can't help them with 1996 solutions. Let me help them with 2025 solutions. And I feel like that's where you come from, just hearing you in that short period of time, understanding them, and then knowing how to help them navigate through those issues. Is that fair? Am I getting that right?
Right, and again, it's been an approach where we're a youth led organization. I started this when I was 14. It was me and my friends in high school. So it wasn't necessarily us trying to impart wisdom or really uplift anyone else. It was us trying to uplift ourselves. It was
Yeah.
trying to give ourselves a voice in a community that has for so long not really paid attention to the voices of young people. That has not seen young people as active change agents and leaders and decision makers. We hear so often that young people are the future, and that's absolutely true. We are the future decision makers, the future leaders of our world and our society. But young people are capable of making differences in our lives and the lives of others right here today, and I think that has been Kinston Teens is at the core of our mission, at the core of our work, is that the folks who are most impacted by problems, whether that's the young people in our organization or our neighbors in East Kinston or other folks who've been historically marginalized and underserved, giving those folks the tools and resources and a space within this organization to actively contribute to the betterment of our community.
Wait a
This is,
minute, Lisette.
uh-huh.
Kinston's big enough to have an East Kinston?
Yes, we have an East Kinston. Yes, we do.
I didn't know that. I learned
Yes,
something today.
yes, we do. And I'm telling you, we have some beautiful, beautiful people in our city. I see that Gail and Lorraine and Clarence. Clarence said something about, he said people should spend the time encouraging our youth and not criticizing them. I absolutely agree. But my thing, I just want to ask you, Chris, what made you believe that you could make a difference? That the teens and you and your teens that you was working with, how did you know how did you know that you could make that difference? Because a lot of times, you're young, they're not going to listen to me. Why did
What?
you perceive that what your youth and your organization did, the youth and organization did, how did you get over the fact or the fear that they may not paying attention to you? How did you get
Yeah.
over that?
For me, I would say it's the fact that I really didn't know. I did not know if this organization would be successful. I didn't know if my peers would come along and join this effort with me, if the community leaders would listen to us. I had no clue of knowing, but I found it necessary to just step out in faith and try something. I think so often we get frozen by fear and we won't step out on faith and step out and try to make a difference, or we're so nervous on, will they listen to me? Nobody cares what I think. Nobody cares about if I try this thing. We'll do it anyway and then see the result. And I'm so grateful that I did step out on faith and start this organization, because you've seen such a tremendous impact when it comes to the community members and the young people who've been involved in this work, the tangible impacts we've been able to make on this community. And, I think I got that confidence to step out on faith, wasn't necessarily new when I started Kinston Teens. My parents instilled the values of being involved in serving my community and me and my siblings at a very young age. My mom was an elementary school teacher. My dad worked in parks and recreation, the city government. And so between the two of them, I was always volunteering at some community event or at a school board meeting with my mom or helping in her classroom or at a school event. So I knew how important it was to be involved in my community. I knew how important it was to show up for other people. And so it came, really like just second nature to me to start Kinston Teens, because I wasn't new to this. I wasn't new to volunteering. I was a Boy Scout. I was involved in my church. And so when it came to this opportunity to start something new and fresh, I felt like I had the connections, the relationships, that I had the confidence that was needed. And still just not even knowing where it would take me or where it would take off. I'm just so glad that I stepped out there and did it. And we've been going strong for over 10 years now.
For
And
sure.
it's such a bad narrative that is out there on, teens and kids don't listen. There's some people that's not true. I always tell people who say kids don't listen or they don't want to listen, it's like, what's your approach?
Mm-hmm.
How are you delivering your message? No one, no matter what age, is going to listen if you're not delivering the message appropriately. Nobody, whether you're an adult or a kid, wants to be talked down to.
That's so true.
No one wants to listen when they're getting talked down to, or if you sound condescending. So a lot of times it's the message, how you deliver that message, and how they receive it. Uh, and I'm sure you can attest to that. The delivery is very, very extremely important. Also, how do you feel about this response? I want to tell you a little short story, because one of the things when trying to help kids and teens that I used to get was, well, you don't have kids, so you don't understand. Because people assume if you don't have kids, you don't understand how to talk to kids, right? So I had a coworker who came in one day and he's upset. I said, why are you upset? He goes, my daughter was talking about getting a boyfriend or whatever. And so she's 13. And I started yelling at her. I said, bad move. He goes, you don't have a daughter. You don't have kids. You don't know. I said, well,
Wow.
if you go off the handle, she's never going to talk to you again, and you're going to be the last to know things. He goes, well, if you don't have kids, how do you know when it's appropriate to talk about certain things with a kid? I said, when they bring it up, because once they bring it up, it means they're thinking about it. And just because you tell them to stop thinking about it doesn't mean it's magically going to go away.
Exactly.
So fast forward 3 months later, he comes into work. He's upset. I'm like, why are you upset? My daughter had an attitude. I asked my wife what's wrong with her. She said she broke up with her boyfriend. And I said, what boyfriend? And my son goes, Dave. And he goes, do you know she had a boy? How does everyone in the house know she has a boyfriend but me? And I said, you don't remember our conversation, did you? That was like I used to get that all the time. And it's like, delivery, man, delivery matters.
It absolutely does. It does matter. I agree with you, Keone. You can't talk down to your child. You can't do that, or the youth. Because it'll draw them away from you. And this is just it's amazing to me, um, how it's almost like, and also like someone young, they can receive a lot better, that's on their age, in their age bracket, or they can receive that because they don't feel vulnerable, like, okay, you're one of us, like they can receive that a lot better. It's very interesting, and it still amazes me how you felt, and even though you didn't really know, that you could make a difference and how you went for it. I mean, sometimes people get right up to they get right up to the cliff, right up to the top of the cliff, right up into the edge. What should I jump or not? What do you think I should do?
Well,
You know,
you're missing the
you
two big
jump.
examples.
It's
You're
awesome.
missing the two. He had two very good examples.
Mhm.
You mentioned your parents and what they did. So
Yes,
it is one thing when you are in a household where you have people setting that example, and you can watch how they move, and it will determine the difference of how you move a lot of times. So am I right, Chris? Those were very good examples, uh, and responsible for a lot of the confidence in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I attribute a lot of that confidence to my parents. I'm so grateful for them and my family. Like I grew up going to city council meetings with my aunt.
Yeah.
My aunt Tammy was just truly that neighborhood person, and we all need those type of people in our neighborhoods who aren't afraid to advocate when your street needs to get repaved, or if the city is consistently missing the trash pickup, or some house needs to get condemned. We need those people who speak up, and so she set that model for me at a very young age of going to the decision makers directly responsible. So often people will complain on social media or complain at the kitchen table, but they won't take that to the folks who actually have the authority to make a difference. And so, yeah, my parents, my family really instilled those examples of me very young. So I kind of knew what to do. And at the same time as well, this community is one that I think is truly such a resilient community here in Kinston. This community has been dealt some very tough blows, from poverty and economic issues to
yes.
gun violence to the climate crisis, and being hit year after year with devastating hurricanes. But this community is a community that bounces back year after year, time after time, from all of those very serious problems. And so to come from a community with that level of strength, that level of resilience, I think it naturally builds some confidence in you as well. It builds some leadership in you, because you come from people who know how to make a dollar out of 15 cents, and to
Yes.
make a way out of no way. Like, that level of strength, resilience, and faith that we have here in Kinston, definitely it flows in my blood just the same as everyone else in our community.
You
This
said
is
something
good. This is
important.
good. I know you've mentioned, Chris, how even in our community we're dealing with gun violence. So, have you ever had to, or have you ever been questioned with a gang member that maybe have come to you and given you some ideas, or have spoken with you about, you know, their challenges in the community and why they've gone that route? Have you ever spoken with any gang members, or, people like that?
Yeah. Early on I mentioned, this issue of gun violence in Kinston. It affected my peers, my friends, my cousins, my classmates. So this is where I grew up at. So I know the challenges that the folks in this community have faced very well. These are things that I've been personally impacted by. I've been at events where unfortunately gunfire broke out, or I've been in situations where I've lost family members to gun violence, or
Mm.
have had family members and friends involved in a shooting before. So I'm very intimately involved with this situation, this issue here. And I think that is what has driven me so much to work hard to make a difference in this
Yeah.
community, because I'm impacted by it as well. This is not an issue where I have parachuted into Kinston. I'm trying to tell people what this community needs best. I'm actively trying to work towards the solutions that I know my community needs best. I know that my neighborhood needs. I know that the young people that my peers need. And so it has been such a trying time sometimes to be able to navigate these issues, to be able to maintain the relationships that I have. And I'm so grateful that my community truly loves and trusts me. I think that's something that a lot of folks in politics typically can't say, that their community loves and trusts them. But my community loves and trusts them. I grew up in what has been ranked as the number one most economically distressed neighborhood or census tract in the entire state of North Carolina, in East Kinston. I went away for 4 years to the healthiest and wealthiest community in this state, in Chapel Hill in Orange County, where I went to school for 4 years. But then came back home and felt like I never missed a beat. I still live in what people call the hood, but I'm actively working towards building relationships with my neighbors and making sure they have the resources to thrive and survive, so that we can maintain and be a neighborhood. So I love
Now,
it.
this is good.
So I love it.
this is good. I'm not mean to interrupt you, but you said that you went away and you came back. That's powerful because a lot of people they go away and they stay away. They don't want to come back, but you
Well,
actually have the
uh,
heart.
hey, we can't blame those people. I ain't going back to Miami. Okay,
Well,
can't
I
blame those
never.
people. All right, one of the things. Hey, sometimes you get away. I ain't going back there. But one of the things he also said was small towns and how they can be forgotten, and people don't understand that. Well, how could this be happening in such a small town? Because it's the illusion of, hey, in a small town it's peaceful, everything's working great. I'm from Miami. We have little small areas in Miami. I was from those small ones, and those small areas get forgotten about. So when you have that one aspect of it's just a small town, everybody knows each other, there's no crime, everything's great, that's a small town that's not forgotten about. But every time you see small towns where they're not getting the resources, there's no jobs being created. These are the things that start to happen. And small towns can spiral out of control even faster than big cities because no one forgets that Raleigh, North Carolina, and Charlotte's there, right? Miami, Florida, Atlanta. We know it's there, but it's those small areas, like he's saying, that if you forget they exist, these are the things that's happened. So people who do come back and effectively change that is always going to be a positive and a great thing. It's a
Yeah.
big responsibility, and you knew that at 14, which is amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, and I will say that these communities and communities like Kinston haven't necessarily been forgotten. I think that when you look at the political demographics, the geography of this community, you think of how important Kinston and Eastern North Carolina is to commerce here in the state. I wouldn't necessarily they've been forgotten. What has happened is that these communities have oftentimes been intentionally under resourced and underdeveloped and underinvested in. And that is what you've seen in Kinston. That is what you've seen in neighborhoods like East Kinston. Even with the amount of development and jobs and revitalization beginning to happen here in Kinston and Lenore County, we're seeing some really great things happening in our downtown here, where businesses are starting to spur up. The
Oh,
state and government are investing in the revitalization of our downtown area. The North Carolina Global Transport, this major aviation and aerospace hub we have on the outer edge of our town, is really booming now with thousands of new jobs being created. But there's still neighborhoods like mine in East Kinston, where Kinston Teens focuses a lot of our work at, where you're not seeing that level of investment, you're not seeing that level of development. And oftentimes you can look at who lives there and begin to make assumptions on why that level of investment isn't being taking place. And that is where it takes neighborhood community members, just ordinary citizens stepping up and saying, "Hey, we don't want our community to be getting the short end of the stick." And so I think that's why I'm so proud of the work we've been able to lead with Kinston Teens and the East Kinston Neighborhood Hub as well, because we're really changing what development looks like, what investment looks like. We're putting our priorities and issue areas right at the forefront of decision makers. We're going to our city council and county commission meetings. We're building relationships with state and federal legislators to try to get funding and resources to our community, because they haven't forgot about us. They know that we're here. They come to our communities when it's time to solicit votes around election season.
that's what I was just about to say.
Yeah,
That's definitely a
they
time that is not forgotten.
Mhm. Yeah, they've just intentionally, refused to invest in these types of communities, and so we're really changing that narrative. We're changing that practice
Yeah,
here in
you
East
have to
Kinston.
have the people to do that. Joe Madison, the Black Eagle, used to always talk about the parking lot protesters. He's like the people who say, "Yeah, we need this and this that," and then you get in front of the council members, and he's the only one talking, and everyone stops talking. So you need those people to speak up. So you worked with which mayor? What was the mayor's name? Lissette.
John Terry Hardy, Mayor
Yeah,
Hardy.
we had him on here, and
Yeah,
it's so funny because he's talking about a lot of the same things that you were talking about, especially when you get into the development part. And anyone who's watching out here that are from these towns like Kinston, Henderson, one of the Henderson, some of the other small towns that I've learned about because I'm not from North Carolina, that you always want to watch out for, and it's not just getting the jobs and the companies to come there. You have to follow through because a lot of times what will happen is they'll put a company in a small town and everybody celebrates, and then you realize that 80% of the people that work there come from another town.
that's
So
true.
that's one thing you have to work for too, because it's not just putting the infrastructure there of job placement, is Are we creating the programs that teach the people to get to the level to be hired by the company that just came? Because that's their biggest excuse. Well, we tried to hire them, but they didn't know, they weren't qualified. So it's a lot more that goes into it, and a lot of people don't understand. It's just not getting the
Mhm.
companies to come there. Are we helping the community elevate to be able to be hired by those companies as well?
Yeah, and that's a lot of the work I've been focusing on in my role as a city council member, as well as with my work with Kinston Teens, is how do we prepare that local workforce? How do we build those pathways so that when these new industries are coming in with all these new aviation and engineering and manufacturing jobs, that is local folks, that is young folks who can transition to being employed with those companies. And so we're doing some great work here within our organization. Just this month, actually, we're launching a digital literacy and digital equity program, getting young people trained up in technology and computer skills so they can gain certificates and training to go to the tech world. So that's a huge major industry we're seeing a lot of advancements in, and we want the young people in our organization to be skilled up and trained and prepared for that. At the government level, we're building a lot of partnerships with our local community college, Lenore Community College, making sure that their students are also able to have pathways into getting these jobs. At our global transport, where I mentioned all these new employment opportunities in the aviation industry are starting to open up. LCC is actually just breaking ground on a new aviation training center right there at the facility where these jobs take place. We'll also be able to get students trained up and certified in different aviation roles so that they can transition pretty seamlessly into these new workforce opportunities. So
That's
we're really trying to keep a grapple on that, keep a grasp on that here in Kinston, making sure that the folks who come to work in Kinston are also members of our community, actively contributing to this community. And even the folks from out of town that come and work at these new industries. I'm also focused on building a lot of new housing here in Kinston so that the
good.
folks who work in Kinston can also live in Kinston. We are proud of the folks who were born and raised here and natives of this community, but we're also wide open for new folks to come and invest and be a part of contributing to our local society.
This is great. This is awesome. I know my little nephew had a problem with his ID. He's got this job opening, for the summer and all, and he's going to get hired, but he doesn't have a proper ID. So we go down to the DMV, and they have this long line. I mean, oh, we already got the first 50. You come back tomorrow. You come back tomorrow. We got the first 50. Come back tomorrow. You know, what can be done about that, or is it just the way it is?
Yeah, so I definitely encourage folks to, stay on top of those things as early as possible. That's always important. If you went recently within the last few weeks, there's been a lot of focus on the real ID transition,
Yes.
the fact that folks are now needing a real ID to enter any federal government facilities or travel, even domestically on an airplane. So there's been a lot of lines recently that's been advertised all over the news and social
Yeah.
media. So folks are having some very long wait times at local DMV offices. The DMV is a state agency, though. I'm in local government, not state government. So we'll have to pay attention, advocate at our state leadership level to try to get some investment and more efficient processes at the DMV agencies. But I think a lot of those long lines were really beyond anyone's control just because of the
Mhm.
fact that there was all this attention on the real ID requirement, and
Right.
folks wanted to go ahead and get one of those IDs.
One of the things, Lisette, that happens when that happens is first thing you have to do is control what you can control. And one of the things he said in there is the key is doing it early as possible. We all got the letter like a year and a half ago that says transition, but what do? Oh, I don't have to do it until February of 2026. I got time. I went and got mine like 5 days after I got the letter. And then I saw a bunch of people at my DMV lines out the door when it was like 30 days left. So
Smart
one of
man.
the things you can do to help yourself is what he said is sometimes when you get things, don't procrastinate. Just take care of it, get it over with, and then move on. Don't look at the deadline and say, I have time, because time catches up.
I absolutely agree, but I was in referencing as far as young people, like little teenagers that just starting out, and it's just touching. It touches my heart. When I hope he doesn't lose the job because of it. Because he just needs his ID. So, but it's really interesting. I see that Clarence said it's important to educate our youth And
Now look, okay, see, we ain't fought all show. We about to fight now. You know, I do comments. And every show you try to sneak in here and read the small comments and struggle.
well, well, well. How about that?
Clarence says it is important to educate our youth that they will be qualified for those jobs. Stop cutting education. That's a widespread um, problem, Clarence. We've always talked about that. You know, try getting public education on par. It seems like it's going to constantly be an ongoing battle. You can't just stop and move on. You have to stay with it. We all know that public school is not equal to most private schools, which is a big problem. And one of the things that Chris said earlier about when you look at the makeup of certain communities, you can make your assumptions why. Um, he's being generous with that, and that's great. Uh, I had that experience myself. Lisette knows this story, and I'll make it shorter. I grew up in a terrible neighborhood. It was all black, drug infested, daily crime, all those things. My mom used my grandmother's address, and I went to a school that was predominantly white. So at school, I was an outcast, and then in the neighborhood, I was an outcast. It was a very weird situation. But anyway, in the sixth grade, I got kicked out of school for fighting, and I had to go to the school in my neighborhood, and all the teachers there told my mom I'm so smart. And she's like, see, you're doing better here. And I'm like, Mom, it's the sixth grade. We're doing what we did 3 years ago in the other school. And that was my first indication of we're not getting taught the same, you know? And so public education is something that people really have to stay in the fight about. I always feel that public education is there to teach you how to be in the workforce for everybody else. That's always been my outlook. So it's a constant fight for me.
I can definitely understand that. This is so interesting. Um, my question is, what what do you fear about the situation that um, our neighborhoods are in, our community, the teens, the youth? What is it that you fear on the horizon, or that you hope that you can impact in your community, and maybe in other communities as well, that might would be effective?
Yeah. My one fear is that folks will get complacent, and it is very easy to get complacent when you don't have hope, when you don't feel that opportunity is there. And I think for so long, a lot of people in Kinston and communities like ours, where there's that history of disinvestment, that history of poverty, those cycles of generational poverty and trauma, it is easy for people to lose hope. It is easy for people to get accustomed to those cycles and to get complacent. And it takes those of us who begin to get uncomfortable, who say that, this cannot be and should not be our normal. It takes those of us who choose to step up and step out. That is what stops those cycles. And so I do worry now with all the issues, the compounding issues we're starting to see, not just in our local communities, but even at the state and federal government levels, with all the discourse in the current presidential administration, with all the issues happening from pandemics to famines to the climate crisis. It is very easy for folks to lose hope, and I don't want us to lose hope to a point that everyone becomes complacent. We need more people willing to step up, to step to the table, to build our own tables, to really disrupt what is going on and try to say that we deserve something better. We deserve something new. And that is what I'm actively working towards here through our organization, through my work in the community, is to show folks that better is possible, that we can disrupt these cycles of poverty and trauma, that we can dream and work towards and build an even better world. So much of what I think one of my bigger encouragements, and one of the things that keeps me going, is the fact, coming from such an under resourced community like Kinston, then living in such a well resourced community like Chapel Hill for 4 years. When I saw the way that the COVID-19 pandemic was even impacting these two communities in such disparate ways, and the fact that people in my neighborhood, in my home neighborhood in Kinston, weren't able to access testing or vaccination clinics, weren't able to get the food they needed to survive, or were struggling to make ends meet and pay their rent and utilities. But then seeing all the different assistance programs and vaccination clinics on every corner and testing clinics that you could drive up and get tested in 5 minutes at in Chapel Hill and Orange County, I knew that when I came back home to Kinston, I wanted my community to have the same resources, the same opportunities that any other community in this state, any other community in this country was afforded to. And so I'm actively building and dreaming and working towards those opportunities and those resources for Kinston because I know that it's possible. But for a lot of folks who have been here their entire lives, have gotten used to the way things are, it is hard to imagine what better is possible, what other resources, what other opportunities are out there. So I think exposure is always important too, trying to expose people in our community to the world beyond our city limits, but also just trying to give folks hope and the ability to use their imagination. And with all that's going on in the world, all that's going on in our community, sometimes folks have forgotten that they even have an imagination. But if we can build that imagination back, if we can encourage folks to dream and vision for what a brighter and healthier future looks like, I think that is what stops folks from being complacent. That is what gives them the energy to keep things going, regardless of their age. Yes, young folks might have energy, but when you get into some of our elders and you get their imagination, their passions going, and their juices and bloods flowing, you've got just as much energy in them. And that's the type of culture, that's the type of community I want to build up. That regardless of your age, you're actively contributing to the betterment of your surroundings. You're actively contributing to preparing for the future, even if it's a future that you may not be around to see. Why not still make sure that your children and your grandchildren have something bright and prosperous to look forward to?
I hope
Wow.
everybody heard that last part. I hope I have to snip that and put that on repeat. It is. Hey, you know what? Everyone out there, it also keeps you youthful. Uh, Reinvigorating yourself. It always keeps you useful. I mean, I'm 46. You guys can't see me, but people always go, "You're." I can't believe it, Lisette. Next month I'll be 3 years from 50.
Wow.
And
Baby.
everybody, when I tell them that, they're like, "That's impossible." I'm like, "You're
Oh,
so."
you just a baby.
I know because I listen. I think involving yourself with people younger than you also keeps it allows you to help keep your perspective evolving. I never get stuck in a perspective. I feel like every couple of years my perspective starts to change because, you're always dealing with new information. You're always dealing with other views. So it's not just important to talk to people older than me. I talk to people older than me, younger than me, my age, and you kind of get those three. That's why I created that show, My Perspective. Remember My Perspective? You were on that, by the way.
Of
How did
course.
I forget that?
Yes, I was in there.
Lisette started off on a show, Chris, called My Perspective. She did the Monday version, and what that show had is, I think Mark is older than you, correct?
Yes.
Mark is in his 60s, and it was 60-year-old, 50-year-old. We had 40-year-old, two 30-year-olds, a couple of 20-year-olds, and a couple of teens on that show.
Me
So
too.
we would have topics that they would discuss, and they would go back and forth because you have a view from a 16-year-old all the way up to a 66-year-old on the same show.
That's true.
And I think it was very unique because when you watch a lot of shows now, everyone talking is either they're all men, they're all women, they're all either the same ethnicity, or even when they're multiple ethnicities, they're usually around the same age. So you're getting like one perspective on that topic. So I love the fact that you brought that up at the end.
This is really good. I think that's so true, Kiana. It makes a difference. I just my thing is that what is it that frustrates you? I remember you said something. I think it was a post that you posted. How that you're a city councilman in Kinston, and it frustrates you when you're trying to advocate for people that won't show up down to the city council meeting. That frustrates you. What frustrates you about your job as being city councilman?
Yeah, one of the things, yes, the lack of citizen engagement sometimes, the fact that, we're actively advocating for community issues and problems affecting folks here, and we don't get the level of input and attendance that we need. That's a constant struggle that I think city councils and leaders everywhere will face and continue to face. But it's something I'm actively working towards trying to address and fix here in Kinston. There are things that I know are super important. I make sure that folks know about. I do, Facebook Live videos. I send out a newsletter and emails, and I make sure that I'm engaging my community on the issues that are important to them. But I think one of the things that bothers me sometimes is um, folks in elected office. I think we all approach our work and our role differently. Even on the city council here in Kinston, I take my role as a city council member in a different perspective and different approach than I think most of my colleagues do. I do try to be very hands-on. I try to make sure that I'm engaging folks from social media, from newsletters to holding office hours just to talk with people about what's going on in the city. Even doing door-to-door canvassing. People expect, door knocks during election season when someone's trying to get their votes. But here in Kinston, people aren't necessarily surprised when Councilman Suggs comes to their door just to ask them how things are going, or if they're impacted by some infrastructure or water issues on their street, or letting them know about an upcoming community event. That's the type of work and that's the type of approach I take to my role as a city council member. And so sometimes those different approaches butt heads in local government, and I think that is one of the frustrating things in my role as a city council member, and it has been. So I'm always encouraging my colleagues to to just dig in a little bit deeper, but also encouraging our community members to also dig in a little bit deeper too, and hold their elected officials accountable. Even prior to my role as a city council member, prior to running for city council, I actively showed up at city council meetings. I never hesitate to go to the podium and tell people what was on my mind, or send an email or a letter to the city council or the school board or county commission to, say, hey, this is an issue that's going on and I need you all to fix it, or here's my proposed solution and you all should consider this. That's the type of accountability, that's the type of engagement that is really needed in our community. And so, it frustrates me, I think, on both ends. The citizens, I want more engagement and more involvement from our citizens, but also want our decision makers and our elected officials to solicit that engagement and to be open and welcoming to that type of engagement and involvement on a much more and much deeper level. So yeah, that's probably my biggest frustration, and that's what I'm trying to counter in my work as both a community leader and organizer, but also as an elected official.
I
Can
can see
anyone?
that so much because when I lived in Fayetteville, thank God I'm gone. When I lived in Fayetteville, I was at a barbershop and a council member had came in there and got a haircut. And, it was around that time. So people were kind of making jokes like, oh, you're showing up here now. And then they were giving all the complaints. And he sat there reading the newspaper and he acted like he wasn't listening to them. And they're like, he ain't even listening to us. And he said, no, I'm listening to you. I hear a lot of complaints, but every time we have a meeting, I haven't seen one of y'all in there. And it got really quiet. Nobody could say anything.
This
He's
is
like,
good because just like Keanu said, when do the city council meet, and who can attend the meetings? Do you have to announce yourself, or when do they meet in our
Yeah,
city?
Yeah, the city council officially holds our regular meetings on the first and third Tuesdays of each month at 5:30 p.m. And those meetings are open to everybody. You don't have to RSVP. You don't have to let anybody know you're coming. You just show up. If you want to sign up to speak, you can sign up to speak at the start or before the start of the meeting. But if you just want to sit and listen, I think sometimes just listening is so important. And I encourage folks to just show up and do that. So anyone is welcome and encouraged to attend those meetings. School board meetings are the first Monday of every month. County commission meetings are also the first and third Tuesdays of each month. So there's always opportunities for folks to get involved and get engaged, and we need more people to just show up. The decisions are going to be made whether you're in the room or not. But sometimes having those extra eyes, the extra pressure, those extra people listening, that gets into the forefront of those decision makers as we stand up there and make those decisions. And also, a lot of times these elected bodies really much cater to and listen to public pressure and whoever's in their ear at the moment. And so if no one's in their ear, they're just going to either vote their conscience or vote the first thing that comes to their mind. But if you're in their ear, if you're actively advocating for your community and the issues that are impacting your streets, your neighborhoods, your parks, your schools, your homes, that's what's going to be in their ear. That's what folks are going to listen to. So I definitely encourage you to show up and listen, but also don't be afraid to get engaged and let people know where you stand on the issues.
This is good for youth, in this climate that we're living in as far as politics. And we have youth that wants to make their voice heard. They want to get that voice out there, but that maybe they don't have a Kinston teens in their hometown, in their community. What can they do? And I know we mentioned several things
Better
that
Google it.
Teens are doing. But what would you suggest that they can do to maybe help them? I mean, apart from meeting at being at the city council meetings, but what can they do to help get their voice out there? How do they get started? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and honestly, my encouragement would be go to a city council meeting, get to know the decision makers and the community leaders in your community. Um, when I started Kinston Teens, I already knew the mayor, most of the city council, our school board members. Like they knew me because I had been showing up to those meetings. I had been involved in Boy Scouts and other community programs and volunteering. And I think those relationships are so important. And as elected officials, we have a responsibility to engage with and speak to, be nice to, and listen to anybody and everybody. But I think the concerns are heard a lot better and received more when we have an existing relationship, especially in a pretty small and intimate community like ours. So I always encourage young people to get to know who the power players are in your community, who those key leaders are who make decisions, and who have the power to actually impact the issues that you care about. Even before you start talking to them and saying and advocating, what your particular problem or issue is, just get to know them, get to know where they stand on things, know where they go to church at, get to know what their priorities are, because then it'll help you tailor things in a specific direction where, maybe the mayor isn't the best person to talk about this problem. Maybe it's a school board member. Maybe this is an issue that the city council doesn't even have any control over. It's actually something that the DA's office controls or the school board or county commission controls. Because one of the things that annoys me as someone who does this type of organizing work in the community, but is also in the role as an elected official, is that I get annoyed when people are mad at the wrong people. So I think a part of my role in the community is helping folks, educating them so they can get mad at the right person. So don't call and fuss me out about a problem in school that's going on, or the school buses or whatever. Let me direct you to your school board member and educate you on how they have the power and authority actually to make a difference in that. And it's not me trying to, abdicate any of my responsibility or trying to push concerns that citizens bring to me onto someone else. It's trying to make sure that those concerns and those issues are being directed to the proper channels. So I love being able to help people get mad at the right folks. And I think that is so important. So for any young person, any community member who is wanting to get involved in their community, whatever your issue is, find out what your problem is that you're really passionate about or you're really concerned about, and then figure out who those key players are, who those power brokers are in your community who can actually help you solve that problem.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I thank you for being here with us today. It was an amazing interview. You're an amazing guy. Hopefully, we can get you back on here again. Um, I think everyone literally enjoyed this interview because we have a 98% like rate so far. So that is amazing. Um, Great to have you on. Lots of great information. And I know you and Lisette are both Kinston residents. I'm not, but I hope the best because I know her and she lives there. Now I know you. So, love the interview today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Christopher, I got one more question to ask you.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
Um,
just one more. You said something about that you may be going further up higher into politics. Do you know what that might be, or you don't want to say?
Right now the door is wide open for any and all opportunities. My term on city council is up this year. I haven't decided yet if I'm running for reelection. But right now I'm just committed to doing the work, continuing the work that I've been able to lead so far on city council, continuing the great work that Kinston Teens is leading in the community with our new digital equity program and the East Kinston neighborhood hub. And we'll see what's next. There's so many possibilities out there for me, both in public service and outside of public service. I know whatever I do put my hands and feet to will be somehow contributing to the betterment of this world. So I'm just wide open to whatever is next.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so very much. I just want to thank you for coming on the show, Chris. And you know what? Today, go out and get in some good trouble. I've heard that statement. Go out there and get into some good trouble.
Whoa.
Yes,
Good trouble is not as fun as bad trouble.
I know, but it's good because
Well, yeah,
bad
well,
ain't good.
hey, hey, some bad trouble is good. I'm telling you, I got in some bad trouble this weekend, and I'm telling you, it was good.
Hey, you know what?
Ah,
Sometimes good is bad and bad is good, but I'll
you're
don't
right.
get me confused. Don't get me all confused. Look,
Sometimes good. Look, look. Ken and Clarence can agree with me. Sometimes good is too boring.
yeah, good can be boring, but sometimes good is good. If good is good, then how is good boring?
I,
You know what I'm saying?
I,
I love you guys. I want y'all to have a great day, all right? And to you youth out there, go out there and do some stuff. Get in some good trouble, I guess. It's a good trouble. Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
don't listen to her, y'all. Get in bad trouble. All right. Well, it wasn't the end of the show, but I guess you've ended it, so I'll hit the button.